There is no denying that slavery was indeed a tragic and terrible part of Black history, marked by unspeakable violence, abuse, and exploitation. While we were told that slavery ended in the U.S. on December 6, 1865, after the adoption of the 13th Amendment, the question remains, is that truly the case? To this day, the residual effects of slavery, such as stereotypes, racial biases, and discriminatory practices, still manifest in different forms. Take the National Basketball Association, NBA, for example. The likes of Steve Ballmer, Daniel Gilbert, Jody Allen, Robert Pera, and Ann Kroenke are major stakeholders in NBA clubs. But what do these people all have in common? They are all white, exerting control over a sport in which the vast majority of its players are African Americans. Could this be a form of modern slavery in disguise? Well, you're about to find out. From the use of the plantation mindset to the unpaid wages of young Black college players, we'll be exposing the dominance of modern slavery in the NBA. So join us as we uncover the bitter truth of how the NBA might be using slavery as a tool of oppression and discrimination against its Black players. While the financial compensation of today's NBA and National Collegiate Athletic Association, NCAA, and the treatment of slaves in the past are worlds apart, they do have some unfortunate similarities. In both cases, individuals were still being controlled and exploited by those in positions of power. This exploitation may take the form of a lack of fair compensation, limited opportunities for self-determination, or an overall system that favors the few over the many. I know you must be wondering how modern slavery is in the NBA, but have you ever wondered why all the major stakeholders are white and why the majority of NBA players are Black? While it is true that the NBA has been dominated by Black players since the 1990s, the same cannot be said for the league's upper levels of management. Only a handful of NBA teams have Black team presidents, general managers, or head coaches. According to Statistica.com, the league has 71.8% African American athletes, but there is not a single team in the NBA that is majorly owned by an African American. Shocking, right? It will interest you to know that until June 2023, Michael Jordan has been the only African American majority owner of an NBA franchise for over a decade. Unfortunately, Jordan announced the sale of the Charlotte Hornets in June 2023 to a buyer group led by two white men, Gabe Plotkin and Rick Schnall. This move has sparked conversations and raised concerns about the future of Black ownership in the league. Now let's talk about how the sale of the Charlotte Hornets by Michael Jordan affects the diversity of the league's upper levels of management. Under Michael Jordan's ownership, the Charlotte Hornets became a team where Black players could thrive in an environment that was both diverse and supportive, without fear of discrimination or manipulation by white team owners. However, Jordan's ownership of the Charlotte Hornets marks a departure from the typical trend seen among NBA owners. This disturbing pattern has long been in existence since the creation of the NBA, where team governors or owners often view players as assets or commodities rather than as fellow human beings. This system vividly reminds us of the historical legacy of the plantation system during slavery, where Black people were subjected to control and exploitation for the profit of their white owners, as they were forced to toil on plantations. In today's NBA, Black players frequently encounter a similar dynamic, where their freedom and careers are often dictated by team owners and governors. The persistence of the plantation mindset in the NBA can be attributed to the effective control that league management has maintained over its operations, resulting in a phenomenon referred to as the jockey syndrome. The term jockey syndrome has racial connotations, as it describes the historical role of slaves and ex-slaves who competed as jockeys, providing entertainment primarily for white audiences. The concept of jockey syndrome was thoroughly explored in William C. Rhoden's book titled $40 Million Slaves: The Rise, Fall, and Redemption of the Black Athlete. This book delves into the complex history and dynamics surrounding Black athletes in sports, shedding light on the challenges they face both historically and in contemporary contexts. In his book, Roden makes a compelling argument that the American sports system resembles a plantation, with team governors wielding their authority to maintain control and marginalize black athletes. This serves as evidence that the system is structured to favor those in positions of power rather than the players themselves. Unless there is a fundamental shift in the league's operational framework, the persistence of jockey syndrome will continue to affect the lives and careers of NBA athletes. While NBA players do earn substantial salaries, they do not necessarily have control over the direction of their careers. Team governors and management are the ones who make the big decisions, from signing players to hiring coaches to changing the league's rules. This means that even if a player is making millions of dollars, they are still subject to the whims of owners and management. In this way, they are not completely free to make their own choices and determine their destiny. When NBA players attempt to assert their agency and exercise their power, the league can respond by tightening its controls. For example, in 2017, when players started to speak out against social justice issues, the NBA reinforced its policy requiring players to stand for the national anthem. This policy was a direct response to players' activism, and it is an example of how the league has the power to restrict players' rights when they try to push back against the status quo. A typical example illustrating this point is the case of former NBA player Mohamed Abdul-Rauf. He was an exceptionally skilled basketball player who chose to protest racial injustice by refusing to stand for the national anthem. Unfortunately, his courageous stance led to swift retribution that ultimately cut short his once promising NBA career. And you might ask, isn't slavery essentially when people are compelled to work without receiving any form of compensation? Well, that's a good question. But did you know that before June 2021, 56% of black college basketball players were unpaid? This raised troubling questions about whether their labor was being exploited in a manner similar to slavery, given that they were a vulnerable group in terms of both race and class. These athletes generate billions of dollars in revenue for their schools and the NCAA, yet they do not receive financial compensation for their labor. What's even more disheartening is that back then, NCAA rules prohibited student athletes from being compensated by their universities, which means that they were unable to earn money for their labor. However, this rule did not apply to college coaches, who were free to earn salaries and other compensation. Take, for example, Nick Saban, who was the head football coach at the University of Alabama. Back then, he earned almost $10 million as a salary. While the average salary for the Football Bowl Subdivision, FBS, head football coach was more than $3 million, it was quite similar to basketball head coaches in higher major college basketball. But the major problem was that while black players dominated the FBS and NCAA, 79% of head basketball coaches and 90% of FBS head football coaches were white men. The compensation disparity between coaches and players highlights the existing power dynamics within college sports, which can be seen as a continuation of the plantation system during slavery. In this system, the players, who are mostly black, are exploited for their labor, while the coaches, who are mostly white, reap the rewards. This is also similar to the jockey syndrome, where the athlete is the one who performs on the field, while the white coach controls the reins. The financial inequality of college sports ensures that a small group of people, mostly white men, can profit off the labor of a largely black and underpaid workforce. When questioned about the compensation disparity, NCAA President Mark Emmert defended the current pay structure by claiming that college athletes are amateurs and that the biggest reason why fans watch the NCAA is because they believe college athletes play for the love of the sport. If you ask me, this argument or defense is shallow because it ignores the reality that college athletics is a multi-billion-dollar industry with numerous coaches and administrators earning millions of dollars annually. However, under increasing pressure from both fans and athletes, the NCAA introduced an interim policy in June 2021 that permits student athletes to monetize their name, image, and likeness, commonly referred to as NIL. This policy marks a substantial shift in the NCAA's approach to athlete compensation, as it previously barred athletes from benefiting financially from their own personal brand and hard work. Despite the challenges and disadvantages Black players often encounter, they continue to excel in both the NCAA and the NBA. This is particularly noteworthy considering that Black students comprise only 2.4% of the national undergraduate population. It underscores the remarkable talent and determination of Black athletes in these leagues. And if you're wondering how this is even possible, first, you need to understand that basketball has been an especially popular sport among Black communities in the United States. Several factors contribute to this, including the affordability of equipment, the accessibility of public basketball courts, and the strong cultural connection to the game. These elements have collectively fueled a passion for basketball and nurtured talent within these communities. Secondly, concerning physical attributes, Black players are particularly well suited for success in basketball. On average, Black people tend to be taller and have longer wingspans than other racial groups, providing them with an advantage on the court. They also tend to possess stronger leg muscles, which aid in jumping and agility. Black people also have a higher percentage of fast twitch muscle fibers, enabling rapid bursts of speed and agility. While the absence of Black majority owners in the NBA and NCAA remains a notable issue, there has been a rise in the number of Black individuals who have become minority stakeholders in basketball clubs. This represents a positive step forward, offering opportunities for Black people to have a say in the decision-making processes of these organizations, no matter how little. Several Black celebrities have made significant investments in NBA teams. For example, rapper J. Cole became a minority owner of the Charlotte Hornets, joining other Black investors like Grant Hill, who invested in the Atlanta Hawks in 2015, Dwayne Wade, who joined the Utah Jazz in 2021, Michelle Williams, who became a part of the Chicago Sky ownership in 2006, and basketball legend Magic Johnson, who co-owned both the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Los Angeles Sparks. This increased presence of Black investors in the NBA and NCAA suggests a shift towards greater diversity in the industry. But the question at hand is whether these minority Black owners possess the potential to exert influence within the organizations they invest in, thereby opening doors for more Black individuals to enter ownership ranks. Will they continue to increase their stake in the organizations, and will more Black investors enter the market? And is it possible for the NBA to eventually have an equal number of Black majority owners as it currently has white owners? Well, only time will tell. There is no denying that having Black owners in the NBA could bring about a substantial and positive influence on the culture and future of the leagues. It will certainly be intriguing to observe how this trend evolves in the years to come. Now tell us, what's your take on the challenges faced by the NBA and NCAA, and the sad reality that there are no majority Black owners in the NBA right now? And if you're a Black athlete or student athlete, have you ever encountered any experiences that resemble modern slavery in the NBA? Kindly tell us in the comments section below. We'd love to hear from you.